In case you hadn't noticed, we live in a world obsessed with sex. You will see sexual stimuli every single day, whether you seek it out or not. Social media, music videos, advertising, and movies are all saturated with soft porn. It may be hard for us to imagine, but in the past, media that was overly sexual was frowned upon. You could go an entire day without sex being so much as mentioned in passing. Over-prioritization of sex. Our soft porn-saturated environment causes men to over-prioritize sex. Sure, it's no secret that men love sex. But today, unlike in the past, men are reminded of sex constantly. Their thought patterns are interrupted constantly by sexual stimuli, causing their minds to constantly return to thinking about sex. Men certainly spend more time thinking about sex today than they would have done in the past, with an environment filled with nothing to look at other than fields and trees. A man will be browsing Instagram on his lunch break, only to be confronted with an image of a fitness influencer posing seductively in tight yoga pants. A man will be working hard on a work project, only for his phone to light up with a new Tinder match. A man will be flicking through television channels, only to come across a music video of 4 women, lined up, scantily clothed, and dancing seductively for the camera. A man will be walking down the street, only to see a huge billboard for a beer commercial of a woman with huge tits, holding 2 pints of beer. For men today, these situations are so commonplace that they're barely worth mentioning. A fish doesn't realize that it's wet, and we don't realize that our modern environment is filled with soft porn. Without a doubt, this environment causes a lot of men to spend a lot of time focusing on how women can sexually satisfy them, rather than how they can enter a relationship with a woman. On top of this, men have had access to high-speed pornography since around 2006. For the first time in history, men have access to sexual experiences at any time they choose, with minimal effort. To put it simply, today a 13-year-old boy has likely seen more naked women than his ancestors would have seen in an entire lifetime. Chasing the fetish. Many men today are highly educated and interested in at least 1 or 2 obscure sexual fetishes that they were exposed to by high-speed pornography. It could be femdom, foot fetishes, hardcore domination, girls in anime cosplay, cheating fetishes, casting couch scenes, public humiliation, and an endless list of other obscure sexual fetishes that can be found on the internet porn. Some men spend their time chasing the fetish, rather than chasing any particular woman. This causes them to use women as a means to an end in order to bring the fantasy they saw in porn into reality. Hyperfocus on female sexuality. Men who consume large amounts of pornography often become hyper-focused on women's sexual attributes. They walk around all day in a kind of daze, gawping at the tits, legs, and asses of the women around them. A common report of men who quit porn is that they begin to spend more time admiring women who are pretty and beautiful rather than women who are hot and sexy. They begin noticing the sparkling eyes of the woman opposite them, rather than the placement and size of her curves. The problem with this hyper-focus on sex, of course, is that causes the goals of men and women to be even more misaligned than they otherwise would be. Men have their minds filled with thoughts of sex, while women are often more focused on romance. This makes it harder for women to find a partner beyond a sex-focused one-night stand. When the world is hyper-focused on sex, novelty becomes king. At a certain level, men want the same level of novelty in the real world as they can get in high-speed pornography, causing them to constantly seek new partners. Unmotivated men. Porn demotivates men to approach women in the real world. After being satisfied earlier that day by high-speed pornography, gathering the courage to approach that cute girl from across the room just doesn't seem worth it. Media replaces life, and men can semi-satisfy their sexual needs without involving real women at all. Today, women aren't getting approached by men who otherwise would be, were it not for the existence of high-speed pornography. Many of the good men women are waiting for are sitting at home watching pornography, rather than being out and available to meet.